The First Amendment issues have been fairly well resolved, except for the fact that the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on it. First Amendment being the separation of church and state. AA people love to say that when you've got to turn your power over to God as you understand them, that's not really God, that's something other than God. And they'll start saying sometimes people believe God is the person who brought them into the group, which sounds like bullcrap for starters. But in every case in which a number of higher courts, the Second Circuit in New York State, Seventh Circuit in Wisconsin, Supreme Court of Tennessee, the Court of Appeals, which is the Supreme Court in New York, and other courts have all decided the same thing. The 12 steps are religious in nature. Their fundamentals are religious. They come from a Protestant Christian revival tradition. There's no escaping it. The big book makes it clear. They put down atheists. It's about Christianity, it's about God. And even if you could somehow separate those things out of it, to go to tell people you now have to say that you're powerless and you're turning yourself over to a higher power, even if somehow you didn't believe that was God, that still would be illegal. You still can't really tell people that they must do that in terms of defining themselves. And so every time it's been ruled on, 12-step programs have been ruled to be, when they've been dictated by the state, which occurs when a court sentences you to a DUI or when you're forced to undergo a 12-step program in prison, they've been ruled unconstitutionally violative of the separation of church and state. That probably should also apply to licensure actions by medical boards, for example, because they're operating with the state's imprimatur in giving people the power to practice medicine. But I'm not aware that any decision has been made in regards to, say, medical boards. And in fact, even in DUI courts and courts around the country, basically, whatever court decisions have come down, they still do the same thing. People are daily forced into 12-step programs. Now, I've written a book called Resisting 12-Step Coercion. I think the only good thing about it is if you go to an actual judge and say, are you aware that this violates the First Amendment? And if you're sincere and if you propose an alternative approach, I like to think that in most courts they'd actually listen to you because you're right and because it's the law where it's been decided. Nonetheless, you're going to have to do a lot of work on your own to get to that point, you know, because they're going to regularly sentence you to 12-step programs if you don't, it's not even if you don't object, it's if you don't scream bloody murder. So there's some positive aspects about the situation, but largely the fact that it violates the First Amendment, that the state's in the business of coercing people into a religious practice, is largely ignored in the United States and continues ad infinitum.